The year is 2100. You're walking through Seoul, Tokyo, or maybe a mid-sized Italian city. The architecture is beautiful, futuristic even, but something's missing. A sound that's defined human civilization for 10,000 years. The sound of children. You pass a playground, the swings have rusted solid, weeds strangle the slide. No one's touched it in 30 years. That school on the corner? It's a geriatric hospice now. You board the subway, and it's eerily quiet. No rush hour, no pushing, just rows of gray hair staring blankly at screens. For 2 centuries, we feared the population bomb. We imagined ourselves as bacteria in a petri dish, multiplying until we consumed every resource and starved. We were wrong. The bomb didn't explode, it imploded. We built our entire economic system, capitalism, pensions, real estate, stock markets, on one non-negotiable assumption: infinite growth. But what happens when customers stop being born, when workers vanish? Welcome to the population collapse. I know what you're thinking, another doomsday video. But this isn't about meteors or AI paperclip maximizers. This is about simple, cold math. To keep a population stable, not growing, just stable, you need a fertility rate of 2.1 children per woman. 1 to replace herself, 1 for the father, and 0.1 to account for life's tragedies. Today, South Korea sits at 0.72. China claims 1.0, but it's probably lower. Even the United States has dropped to 1.6. We're not tapping the brakes, we're driving off a demographic cliff. And while it's bad for biology, it's catastrophic for economics. Let me show you the 10 stages of economic collapse caused by depopulation. Stage 1, the Great Pension Ponzi Scheme. If you're under 40, sit down. We need to talk about your retirement, or more accurately, your lack of one. Modern pension systems, U.S. Social Security, British state pensions, Japanese nenkin, were designed in the mid-20th century when the world looked different. In 1950, for every retiree collecting benefits, 16 workers paid into the system. Beautiful math. Take a little from 16 people, pool it together, and hand it to grandma. Easy. But that system requires the bottom of the pyramid to always be wider than the top. It requires more young people than old people. It's a Ponzi scheme. I know that's loaded terminology, but consider the definition. A fraud that pays profits to earlier investors with funds from more recent investors. That's literally how Social Security works. The money you pay today doesn't go into a vault with your name on it. It's written as a check immediately to pay your parents and grandparents. That 16-to-1 ratio, gone. In the U.S., it's approaching 2.5 to 1. In Japan and parts of Europe, it's terrifyingly close to 1 to 1. Picture this. In the 1950s, 16 people chipped in to buy dinner for 1 retiree. Cheap. Now it's just you and 1 other person buying that dinner. And the retiree, living longer, ordering lobster, needs expensive knee replacements and medications. Meanwhile, you're broke. Fast forward to 2035. The Social Security Trust Fund is officially depleted. That's the actual government projection. 2 choices, both terrible. Cut benefits. Tell 70 million voting seniors their checks are reduced by 25%. Political suicide. Old people vote, young people post on TikTok. Raise taxes. Tell millennials and Gen Z already drowning in student debt, locked out of home ownership, that now they owe 40% of their paycheck instead of 15%. This creates intergenerational warfare.
The young look at the old and think, you have the cheapest houses in history, the greatest stock market run ever, and now you want to cannibalize my wages for your retirement cruise? When more people ride in the cart than pull it, the cart stops moving. This is the first casualty, the promise that the state will care for you when you're old. Stage 2, the real estate apocalypse. But that's okay, you think. My parents have that 4-bedroom suburban house, bought for $30,000 in 1982, now worth $800,000 on Zillow. They'll sell it, downsize, live off the equity. Wrong. Real estate is musical chairs. You buy a starter home, sell it for a family home, sell that for a retirement condo. The game works because someone's always entering the room to take the chair you just left. But what happens when the music stops and no one's at the door? We don't have to guess. Look at Japan. Over 9 million vacant homes, ghost homes, not shacks in the woods, family homes in decent towns. You can buy a house in rural Japan right now for $500. Some towns give them away free. Why? The owner died, their kids moved to Tokyo or never existed, and the taxes cost more than the property's worth. Economics 101. Price is determined by supply and demand. Supply. The boomer generation, history's largest, will try to sell their homes over the next 15 to 20 years, a massive flood of inventory. Demand. Gen X, Millennials, Gen Z are smaller in number and significantly poorer. Imagine your neighborhood in 2040, nice suburb, but 3 houses on the block sit empty, overgrown grass, broken windows. When 3 houses sell for pennies, yours isn't worth $800,000 anymore. With 50 sellers for 10 buyers, prices hit the floor. This terrifies economists. For the middle class, the home is the primary wealth storage. If housing prices don't just correct, but structurally crash due to demographics, trillions in perceived wealth evaporate. You can't borrow against equity that doesn't exist. Can't sell to pay for nursing care when no one's buying. This is the asset deflation trap. We're so accustomed to things getting expensive that we can't comprehend a world where assets lose value every year because there are fewer humans to use them.
Think bigger. Commercial real estate, malls, office parks, factories, all built for growing populations. In a shrinking world, a 20% population drop doesn't mean 20% fewer shoppers. It means the mall goes bankrupt. The factory closes. China's ghost cities were mocked for years. Soon, the West will have the opposite problem. Once thriving cities slowly turning to ruins as people simply fade away. Stage 3. The death of innovation. We've covered money and houses, but something even more critical dies with the population: the future. Let's be honest about something uncomfortable but true. Innovation is a young person's game. Einstein published special relativity at 26. Steve Jobs started Apple at 21. Zuckerberg launched Facebook at 19. Page and Brin founded Google in their 20s. It's not that older people aren't smart. They're risk-averse. At 22, sleeping on a floor mattress, eating ramen, you have nothing to lose. You'll try crazy ideas with 99% failure rates, because if you fail, you just get a job. At 55, with a mortgage, kids in college, and a bad back, you don't bet the farm on disruptive technology. You protect what you have, vote for stability, invest in bonds, not startups. Imagine a society with a median age of 55. For context, the U.S. median is currently 38. Japan's already at 49. In a geriatric society, capital stops flowing to crazy ideas and pours entirely into healthcare and maintenance. We stop trying to reach Mars because we need that budget for hip replacements.
Fusion energy research gets defunded because voters care more about preserving pension payouts for 5 more years. Economists call this secular stagnation, a fancy way of saying nothing exciting happens anymore. You end up technologically frozen. The cars in 2050 look like the cars in 2030. The phones are identical. Movies are just the 50th Spider-Man remake because studios won't risk new IP. There's also the issue of fluid intelligence. Psychologists distinguish between crystallized intelligence, wisdom, experience, vocabulary, which older people have in abundance, and fluid intelligence, the ability to solve novel problems, think abstractly, adapt to rapid change. Fluid intelligence peaks in early adulthood. Shrink the pool of young brains, and you literally shrink the global processing power for new problems. We're facing climate change, energy crises, potential pandemics. We need millions of bright, hungry, flexible minds attacking these challenges. Instead, we're giving them fewer resources and asking them to spend their prime years changing diapers for a population that outnumbers them 3-to-1. This isn't just economic decline, it's cultural depression. A world without youth is a world without edge. A permanent Sunday afternoon at a quiet country club. Safe, maybe. Boring, absolutely. Stage 4, the labor crisis, when nobody wants to work becomes literal. Nobody wants to work anymore. You've heard your uncle say it at Thanksgiving, seen it taped to the Wendy's drive-thru window. Here's the terrifying truth. It's not that they don't want to work, they don't exist. We're entering the era of structural labor shortage. For 40 years, globalization gave us endless cheap labor. Labor gets expensive in America, move the factory to China. China gets expensive, try Vietnam. But what happens when everyone runs out of kids? China's working age population has already peaked, shrinking by millions annually. By 2050, China will lose more workers than Brazil's entire population. Europe is shrinking. Russia is shrinking. Even Thailand and Brazil are below replacement rates. Picture this. 2035, your pipe bursts, water floods your kitchen. You call a plumber. The automated voice says, "You are number 4,300 in line. Expected wait time, 6 months." Why? Plumbing requires young backs and knees, and in 2035, young people are a scarce luxury commodity. The few plumbers that exist charge $500 an hour. Haircuts are $150. Coffee, $25. This is the Baumol effect. Services requiring human labor skyrocket because human labor becomes Earth's rarest resource. But robots will save us, I hear you screaming. AI, automation, robots. Yes, AI writes mediocre poetry and generates weird cat chess images, but have you seen a robot fix a complex HVAC system in a cramped attic? Change a bedpan for an 85-year-old dementia patient with care and empathy? We're decades, maybe centuries, from robots handling the messy, unstructured physical world effectively and cheaply. This creates permanent cost-push inflation. Run a restaurant with no teenagers to wash dishes? You pay a 40-year-old $30 an hour. That means your burger is $40. We're moving from abundance, cheap goods, cheap services, cheap delivery, to scarcity. The Amazon Prime era, where you click a button and a human drives a package to your door in 2 hours? Historical anomaly. That was subsidized by cheap labor and investor cash. In a depopulating world, having a human servant deliver toothpaste becomes a luxury only the rich afford. We'll do things ourselves again, fix our sinks, cook our food, mow our lawns. The era of convenience is ending because the human batteries powering it are running out. Stage 5, the geopolitical suicide pact. Let's zoom way out. What happens when great powers start dying? History teaches us population is power. The British Empire rose with its population explosion. The American century coincided with a massive baby boom. China's rise was fueled by a billion-person workforce. You can own all the F-35 fighter jets in the world, but they're useless without 20-year-olds to fly them, maintain them, guard the bases. Armies run on youth. Wars are fought by the young.
Russia faces a demographic death spiral, losing hundreds of thousands of young men in war, while having a birth rate ensuring they'll never be replaced. This makes a country dangerous. A dying nation is a desperate nation. If a leader knows their country will be too old and weak to fight in 20 years, they might decide to fight now. The closing window of opportunity theory. Some analysts argue China's Taiwan aggression isn't happening despite their demographic collapse, but because of it. They know by 2040 they'll be grappling with a massive elderly population and shrinking workforce. If they want to move, it's now while they have the manpower. Then there's the inevitable scramble for the world's most valuable resource, people. Right now, Western politics screams, "Stop the boats" and "Build the wall." But mark my words, in 20 years the slogan becomes, "Please come in." Countries will aggressively compete to steal young people from the few places that still have them, mostly Africa and parts of South Asia. Canada's already doing this, importing unprecedented numbers of immigrants to prop up their housing market and tax base. Germany's desperate for workers. Even Japan, traditionally closed, is quietly opening doors. This leads to brain drain on steroids. The global north will vacuum up doctors, engineers, and nurses from the global south, leaving developing nations worse off. It's a new colonialism, demographic extraction. We won't steal their gold or rubber, we'll steal their children. Imagine a world where visas aren't restricted but auctioned. Come to Italy, tax-free salary and free house, versus come to America, citizenship in 3 months. Sounds crazy now, but when nursing homes are full and no one's changing sheets, political ideologies shift very, very fast. Stage 6, the death of consumerism and your stock portfolio. Let's talk about the unspoken religion of the 21st century, consumerism. Our entire existence is built on the idea that next year we'll sell more iPhones, more sneakers, more Big Macs than this year. That's what GDP growth means, why the S&P 500 goes up, why your 401k goes up. But here's the fundamental truth Wall Street won't admit. Old people don't buy stuff. Think about it. At 25, you're an economic powerhouse, buying a car, furnishing an apartment, buying clothes for dates, diapers for babies, beer, video games. You're an engine of consumption. At 80, you have all the furniture you'll ever need. You're not buying new Jordans, upgrading your car, buying a bigger house. Your spending shifts almost entirely to maintenance, healthcare, heating, food. Economists talk about the velocity of money, how fast a dollar moves from hand to hand. In a young society, money sprints. I pay the bartender, he pays the taxi driver, she pays the babysitter. In an aging society, money crawls, hoarded in savings accounts for future medical bills. When consumption drops, companies stop growing. When companies stop growing, stock prices flatline. We assume the stock market always goes up 8% annually on average. That average was calculated during humanity's greatest population boom, 1950 to 2020.
Look at Japan's Nikkei 225. In 1989, it hit an all-time high. Then the demographic bomb detonated. When did it finally recover to that 1989 level? 2024, 34 years just to break even. Imagine retiring in 1990 with your life savings in the market, expecting growth, and instead watching it stay flat or drop for the rest of your life. That's the S&P 500's future in a depopulating world. But if nobody's buying stuff, won't prices drop? Isn't that good? Welcome to deflation. Sounds nice, yay, cheaper TVs, but it's an economic cancer. The deflation spiral. 1. Demand drops, fewer people. 2. Prices drop to attract buyers. 3. Consumers think, why buy this car for $30,000 today when it'll be $25,000 next month? So they wait. 4. Car company makes no money. 5. Workers get fired. 6. Those workers now have zero money to buy anything. 7. Demand drops further. This spiral trapped Japan for 30 years. It transforms a dynamic economy into a stagnant swamp, kills entrepreneurship. Why start a business when the customer base shrinks every single day? Stage 7, the lonely century, the human cost. So far, we've discussed dollars and cents, but the most devastating impact isn't economic, it's psychological. We're building a world of radical isolation. Throughout history, the safety net wasn't government, it was the clan. Your 4 siblings, 12 cousins, aunts and uncles, all in the same village. If you got sick, a cousin brought soup. Lost your job, your brother got you farm work. Today, we're moving toward the beanpole family structure. You have no siblings, your parents had no siblings, no aunts, no uncles, no cousins. The family tree has no branches, just a straight line up. When your parents age, the care burden falls 100% on you. No brother to share the cost, no sister to take the Tuesday shift. Just you working full-time, raising your own singular child, caring for 2 aging parents. This is called the sandwich generation problem. In the future, it's the crushed generation. The burnout rate will be astronomical. In Japan, they have a word, kodokushi, lonely death. People who die alone in their apartments, undiscovered for weeks or months until the smell alerts neighbors. Companies specialize in cleaning these apartments, scrubbing the stain of a decomposed human body from the floorboards. This is becoming a growth industry. In South Korea, there are hikikomori, young men who lock themselves in their rooms for years, refusing to participate in a society that demands too much and offers too little.
How will we cope? We're already seeing it. We'll replace human connection with synthetic intimacy. Can't find a partner because the dating pool's too small or you're too busy working to support the elderly? You turn to AI. AI girlfriends and boyfriends, AI therapists, elder care robots simulating conversation to keep dementia patients calm. We're heading toward a future where millions will live, interact, and die, having spent more emotional energy on algorithms than biological humans. It creates a feedback loop. The lonelier we get, the less we date. The less we date, the fewer kids we have. The fewer kids we have, the lonelier the next generation gets. A civilization slowly retreating into its own bedroom, putting on a VR headset, and fading away. Stage 8. The failed fixes. Why money won't solve this. Just pay people to have kids. That's the knee-jerk reaction. If the problem is cost, throw cash at it. Governments are trying this now.
Hungary offers lifetime tax exemptions for 4 kids. South Korea hands out massive cash stipends. Russia's reviving the Soviet-era Mother Heroine Award. The result? It doesn't work. South Korea threw $200 billion at boosting birth rates over 16 years. The result? Their rate dropped even lower, from 1.2 to 0.72. Why? Because children aren't a financial calculation, they're a lifestyle tax. In a modern, hyper-competitive, urbanized world, a child is a massive liability to your time and status. To succeed in your career, you need 60-hour work weeks. To afford a house, you need 2 incomes. To give a child a good start, you need tutors, piano lessons, travel soccer. The bar for good parenting has been raised so impossibly high, it feels unattainable. Sociologist Daniel Bell called this the cultural contradiction of capitalism. Capitalism demands you be a mobile, flexible, dedicated worker. Biology demands you be a stable, present, patient parent. You cannot be both. The system is designed to consume the very humans it needs to perpetuate itself. It's an engine eating its own spare parts. So if bribery doesn't work, what's left? We're already seeing ectolife concepts, artificial wombs, industrialized birth, the idea that the state will grow babies in labs because women simply refuse to do it anymore. Sounds like Brave New World or The Matrix, but if a country faces the choice between extinction and lab-grown citizens, which do you think they'll choose? Desperation justifies anything. But there's a more likely outcome. We won't go full Matrix, we'll just shrink. We'll accept a smaller, quieter, poorer world. We'll learn to live in the ruins of the growth era. Stage 9. The environmental paradox, the only silver lining. Before we wrap this in existential dread, let's address the one group cheering for all of this, environmentalists. For decades, we've been told overpopulation is the disease killing the planet. More people, more carbon, more plastic, more deforestation. So if the population crashes, that's good, right? Nature is healing. Aggressively. We're already seeing what happens when humans retreat. In the Chernobyl exclusion zone, wolves, bears, and bison have returned in record numbers. In abandoned Japanese villages, bears walk down Main Street. In parts of Detroit, nature has reclaimed entire city blocks, turning urban sprawl back into prairie. If we drop from 8 billion to 4 billion over the next century, the pressure on the biosphere drops immensely. Carbon emissions plummet, rainforests regrow, oceans replenish. But here's the trap. The transition to that green utopia will be hell on earth for the humans living through it. We've built a civilization that runs on growth. Switching to a civilization running on shrinkage, degrowth, requires tearing down almost every institution we have. Our banking system collapses without growth. Loans rely on future expansion. Welfare states collapse. Supply chains break. The irony is cruel. To save the biosphere, we might have to destroy the economy. We're like a train speeding 200 miles per hour toward a cliff. Climate change. The population collapse pulls the emergency brake. Great, we don't go off the cliff, but the sudden stop shatters the bones of everyone on the train. Is it worth it? Ask the wolves, they'll have a yes. Ask the harnessing pensioner in 2050, and he might have a different answer. Stage 10. The Great Transition. Final thoughts. Where does this leave us? We're standing at the threshold of the most significant shift in human history since the Industrial Revolution. For 250 years, the arrow only pointed up. More people, more money, more stuff, more cities. Now the arrow's turning down. This isn't necessarily the end of the world, but it is the end of the world as we know it. We have to stop pretending this is a temporary dip. Stop thinking a $500 tax credit will make people have 6 kids again. The culture has changed. The biology has changed. The incentives have changed. We're entering the age of contraction. We need to invent a new economics, one that doesn't panic when the GDP line goes flat. Maybe we value community over consumption. Maybe we value automation over cheap labor. Maybe we measure success not by how many new skyscrapers we build, but by how well we care for the people already living in them. The next 50 years will be messy. Economic crashes, pension defaults, political chaos, ghost towns, and lonely deaths. But on the other side, maybe there's a stable, smaller humanity. A humanity that isn't eating the planet alive. A humanity that's learned more isn't always better.
We are the generation that has to manage the decline. We're the hospice nurses for the old world and the midwives for, well, whatever comes next. So as you walk down that street in 2100, past the empty playground and quiet school, is it a tragedy or just a new chapter? The party is over. The music has stopped. The question is, can we learn to enjoy the silence? If this gave you an existential crisis, you're welcome. That's what I'm here for. But seriously, this is a conversation we need to have. Politicians won't touch it. Doesn't fit a 4-year election cycle. Corporations won't touch it. Hurts their stock price. It's up to us to figure this out. I want to hear from you in the comments, specifically younger viewers. Does the cost of living make you terrified to have kids, or do you just not want them? Be honest. I'm reading every comment. If you want to support the channel so I can afford a nursing home one day, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one, while we're all still here.